Thank you, Kathy. I also want to say thanks to Sue Suter for inviting me to share just a few brief remarks with you here today. I also want to extend special thanks to two of my colleagues from United Way Worldwide who are joining me, Ben and Keisha. Thank you also for being here. And thanks to all of you for being here today to discuss this important topic and come together as a community. I am just crossing my 3 months in my role as U.S. President of United Way Worldwide, and I've got to say that for someone who's dedicated their career to nonprofit service to have impact bigger than self, this is really an honor for me to be in this role. And United Way Worldwide is an impressive organization. We're the world's largest privately funded nonprofit, raising close to $4.9 billion a year. We have 10 million individual donors. We have 2.6 million individual volunteers. Impressive stats. But what I've found in my time with United Way, both as CEO at the local level and now as in my role as President of United Way U.S. President of United Way Worldwide. I don't think Brian Gallagher would like that. I'm U.S. President of United Way Worldwide. What I found to be even more impressive is the people and the network of United Ways and their partners in local communities and the work that's being done to advance communities. You know, I didn't expect in my first 3 months on the role to be facing two devastating effects on our country that I'd have to be working with. The first being Hurricane Harvey hitting Texas and Louisiana, and then Hurricane Irma hitting the Southeast. 2 Category 4 storms affecting our country in 2 weeks. I had the opportunity to go to Texas last week and visit with those local communities, some of those that were most devastated. And as I got to Houston and drove through Houston and met with the folks there, and then made my way out to Port Orange in Orange County and Beaumont, on my drive there, I was seeing miles and miles of water where instinctively I knew water shouldn't be. And as I made my way to the United Way in Beaumont, as I got closer and closer, all I saw was debris piled out in front of every house and every business. And then I pulled into the United Way, who also had been affected and their employees had been affected. And their offices were uninhabitable because of the water and the mold. So we had a makeshift table out in the parking lot across parking spaces with chairs pulled around it. And when I sat down to meet with them, they were meeting with partners talking about how to recover and how to rebuild their community. These are folks that were personally impacted by these floods, and their offices that they are now sitting outside of have been impacted. They were working with our partners, our nonprofit partners, the Red Cross and the Salvation Army, to figure out what the crisis response was going to be. But the thing that struck me, not only in Beaumont, but in Port Orange and Houston and in Port Arthur and Orange County, was that the United Ways were coming together, and these are United Ways that have been in their communities for decades and in some cases a century, and they were thinking about what's this community look like in decades in the next century, and United Way will be there for that. I had a call yesterday from here with all the CEOs, the local CEOs in Florida, and the Keys have been devastated by this hurricane, and Jacksonville was unexpectedly impacted harder than they anticipated. And as each CEO for these local communities got on the phone, and all places within Florida were affected in some way, Tampa got on, Palm Beach got on, Fort Lauderdale got on. In a lot of these cases and in these counties, 50% of their residents don't have power right now, and some don't have water. And what they were concerned about was Kate, the exec in the Keys. And what can we do to come together as Florida and as a network to support the Keys, to support the U.S. Virgin Islands, to support Puerto Rico and the other islands in the Caribbean? And the thing that struck me is the network. And Kathy made mention of it, one network. That is the strength of United Way, of us coming together as people with our partners to address those issues that are most critical in our communities, in our country, in our world. And as I thought about those experiences and thought about my brief time with you here today, I couldn't help but think in those communities and in those states, the cooperation and the collaboration between the first responders, government, nonprofit, the business community, and the individuals affected. They were coming together to address their community's most pressing issues. And what's happening here in Lancaster in terms of your community coming together to address your community's most pressing issues is really impressive. The collaboration, cooperation that's going on to address those issues is impressive. And I look at United Way of Lancaster's principles of being committed to achieving systemic social change with our community, committed to achieving success through collaboration and intentional partnership, committed to demonstrating success through fact-based measurement, and then to consider what those principles are being applied to, the goals that Kathy mentioned. 100% of children will enter kindergarten ready to learn. 100% of students and adults will have post-secondary credentials. Families and individuals living in poverty will decrease by 50%. 100% of individuals, children, and families will have a medical home. Those are weighty goals, goals that will certainly forward your community, and the only way to ensure that attaining those goals are not simply crossing a finish line, but rather systemic changes, is by addressing them through a collective impact strategy. Through collaboration, through trusted partners coming together for a good greater than an individual organization or individual sector. And that's what's happening here in Lancaster. And you couldn't have a better keynote speaker today than Mark Cabage with the Tamarack Institute. I wish you a great morning of great learning. Thank you again to Sue and Kathy for having me here this morning. And thank you all for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule, doing very important work, to come together to learn how you can impact the issues that are facing your community. Thank you.